Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byfear. So I think there's a pretty clear thing that most seasoned Destiny veterans spotted in the season finale for the Season of the Seraph. Namely, it was this moment, where the Traveler hung above the Earth in a fashion that mimicked the original key art for Destiny from about 10 years ago. It's a pretty iconic image and a lot of people were very quick to point this out. It was a very important moment in the story no matter what, and, well, I think Bungie knew that, and maybe has been planning for it for a while. However, there are a lot of little bits in the rest of the finale that you might not have noticed which are also pretty special. So, let's go ahead and talk about those. To start us off, there were more moments of the Traveler in space than just that final shot above the Earth. Namely, there's this moment here, where Bungie is showing us the moment as the Traveler is leaving the atmosphere. And it's actually a moment that they believe was so special that they're selling it on the Bungie store, which is odd considering that the first shot we discussed is, well, I mean, it's easily a lot more iconic. It's certainly a lot more recognizable. But what you might have missed is that this art piece replicates a lorebook that we got within the Shadowkeep expansion, and the lorebook's cover looks like this. Yeah, that's a pyramid on the other side of it, and that is absolutely the Traveler getting into position. The lorebook was sent to us from the perspective of the Witness, and it's called Unveiling. Note how the Traveler is perfectly framed within that shot on the left-hand side. Yeah, this was probably a really clear callback to this particular lorebook. This moment is only made all the more important when you listen to Rasputin's final message, which contained a note about a discovery from within the Nephele Stronghold files that references something or someone or somewhere called the Veil. This hidden veil, whatever it may be, is a coincidence that can't be ignored considering the name of that lorebook being Unveiling. Maybe it's time to go back and reread this lorebook. It's a very important read as far as understanding the perspective of the Witness, but it also explains some of the primordial myths of the Destiny universe. To this day, it's the oldest record we have of the darkness and light, and canonically, assuming that it is indeed correct and not filled with lies, which is always a possibility, it would actually represent the first moment in chronicled history in Destiny that we can reach back to. Next up, something cool that only players with a really keen eye would have noticed. It's this. If you go through the final mission, the Abhorrent Imperative mission, you can actually get a potential look at the idea that the Traveler and its departure might have been hinted to in advance during the mission. Well, sort of. Let me explain. As you're going through that season finale mission, on the left side of your screen you always get a bunch of contextual information. There's your objective, there is your ammunition, there is the status bar that fills up with things, there is the little notification series of pop-ups, and then there's your radar. Yeah, this is another one of those moments. Your radar's loadout in this particular mission is not being used to designate location. In fact, it has no correspondence with your location at all, as best I can tell. It does, however, track where you are in the mission as far as chronology, and the reason being is that it's telling us the events that are playing out in that moment. Below the radar, you will see what is happening in Warmind code for the most part. A lot of it requires breaking down as a result, but it tells us things that we otherwise might have missed. This is what it will tell us. As you go through, you can start, and you will see the following at the beginning of the mission. AICOM Rasputin, Assets Warwatch Imperative. I believe this is Rasputin trying to assess the state of the warsats being engaged in the attack on the Traveler. The next following line reads, Compiling latest bracket 0 close bracket intelligence. Event is Skyshock and context is Hades. Error. Rasputin 01 cognito not detected. Rasputin route bypass initiated. In sequence, these bits of Warmind code mean the following. First of all, Rasputin is looking up the current state of the Traveler. We can tell this because whenever Warmind code notes the Traveler, the notation of bracket O bracket, with the O being a capital, is used, and I think that's very deliberate because the O is just a big old circle, kind of like the Traveler. This is something that comes up a bunch in the actual code for this particular bit and in Warmind code generally, so remember the bracket O bracket bit, it's going to be important in a moment. The current event of Eramis engaging the Warsats in order to destroy the Traveler is ranked as a Skyshock event, classifying Eramis correctly as an extrasolar threat. Skyshock alerts are often listed as either an outside or inside context, but in this instance, the context is listed as Hades. An inside context Skyshock alert is one that the Warmind has prepared for in some manner. An outside context Skyshock alert is one like the pyramids, which Rasputin has not been able to plan for. I can only imagine that a Hades context Skyshock alert means something apocalyptic is happening, or something that will quickly lead to death, and that Rasputin could have only planned for it in his worst possible nightmares. RSPN-01 Cognito not detected is perhaps a way of saying that Rasputin's new exoform is not present within the control of Seraph Station, and as a result, the information we get then is that Rasputin is hacking in, represented by that next line of code, RSPN root bypass initiated. Rasputin then begins to regenerate encryption keys for the station in order to gain control, and as we are scaling the outside of the station, this takes place. A virus is detected within the station's systems, and in order to skirt this, Rasputin enacts the Silent Vales protocol, which, as best we can tell, is designed to evade the detection of hostile defenses within a data system. Our map then reads the following: Morality processes offline, Midnight Exigent in effect. This shows up as we fight Eramis, and the note of Midnight Exigent is essentially saying that all Rasputin's morality codes are released. He is able to make his own choices, which previously included abandoning humanity in order to devise a long-term strategy for their survival. This is one of the most underappreciated but important lines of code in this whole mission, because essentially it implies what has always been the case but really drives the point home. Rasputin's decision to sacrifice himself wasn't a programmed action within its code. Midnight Exigent implies the opposite. It implies that Rasputin has no limits, no restrictions, and is free to make whatever decisions he believes is most important. His moral decision wasn't enforced by data. In fact, it was given freedom by data. It was instead something that he personally determined, and he chose to sacrifice himself anyway. Now, of course, that is assuming something here, which is that the data readouts in the top left are all from Rasputin's perspective, and I think that might not necessarily be the case, considering the later interactions within the mission, especially the bits that we're about to go over. But it's worth noting that all of this bit about Midnight Exigent goes down as we're fighting Eramis, and we can see that Rasputin then starts gaining root access to the station's system as the fight draws to a close. He then begins to initialize station security, and it's at this moment that he begins to start deploying those heavy frames to aid us in battle. When we get inside, we then see the following from the data feed. Activate Loki Crown. This is Eramis's work. This is the code that Clovis Bray originally created that would make the Warmind unleash its weapons on the Traveler. This was rolled into a greater protocol that the mission is named after, Abhorrent Imperative. We then see the following lines of code, which are our early hint as to the idea that the Traveler was going to leave the system after all. They are as follows. Prevent Traveler departure by any means available. Spoof. ISR and Warwatch indicates imminent Traveler departure. Traveler departure compromises human survival and epoch strategy. Stand by for Abhorrent Imperative. Now here's the thing. When you read the code at face value, it indicates that according to whatever the ISR and Warsat network is, the Traveler is preparing to depart the system. Remember that bracket, capital O bracket, is the code for the Traveler. However, the word spoof being before all of that seems to indicate that this was actually just a tricked line of code that Eramis had used in order to initiate the system for Abhorrent Imperative and to get the Warsats to shoot at the Traveler. It's not clear if that is the case, but regardless, this is something worth looking at, and this is why I say it might have been an early look. Regardless, the idea of the Traveler leaving is discussed immediately and right on our screen there, and to a certain extent it does make sense. This was the original design of the protocol. If the Traveler left, it was something that Rasputin was able to do. Abhorrent Imperative was changed internally by Rasputin's systems so that it could be used, not that it would be used, and also changed in a way that would allow Rasputin to shoot the Traveler as a possible exercise should it leave. However, the original protocol of Clovis Bray is still in there, and that is Loki Crown. Loki Crown, of course, is what would have turned him into a god, something that allowed the Warmind to ascend, something that allowed it to take the Traveler's place. As a result, the protocol then counts upwards, with Loki Crown being the code that we see for the rest of the mission. Its status starts at 20% and goes all the way to 98% by the end of our final boss encounter. This indicates just how close Eramis got to her goal. If we had been a little bit later, the Warsats might have fired before Red was ready to make his ultimate sacrifice. Regardless of this, it seems that the Warsat network might have detected the potential for the Traveler's departure well before we actually saw its descent in-game. So keep that in mind. We actually got a little bit of a hint as to what was going to happen in the finale cutscene in the mission as we were fighting our way through. So all of that was a lot of code and jargon leading to something pretty circumstantial. However, we can do a lot more simple stuff, and we can take a look at some of the other little bits and pieces that were Easter eggs during the finale. Take a look at the finale cutscene again, and look at the fire team standing behind Ikora and Zavala. They are pretty mundane looking, but if you look closer, and if you're a real Destiny veteran, you actually might remember that these 3 Guardians were from some of the original Destiny 1 trailers, namely some of the live-action ones. It's a pretty neat throwback here, and I think it sort of canonizes these particular Guardians and their fire team. And this isn't the only reference that throws things all the way back to some of the earliest concept art. In this last shot of the pyramids near Jupiter, Bungie is making another deliberate throwback, namely to this piece of art here, which is one of the first shots where we actually ever saw the Pyramid Fleet. It's an old piece of art, it's in fact one of the oldest pieces of art that we have relating to the darkness, and it's a pretty neat little look at things considering that, yeah, we have actually been able to see this in-game now. It's also pretty amazing considering that this art is nearly 10 years old as far as its publication, and we wouldn't even see pyramid ships for another 3 to 4 years after this first piece had been published. It's another neat throwback that Bungie included in the season finale that you might have missed. But it's not the only little detail that you might have missed from that particular shot. Take a look at the middle of the fleet of ships, and you'll notice that one vessel is notably different from all the others that surround it. I'm sure that a lot of you might have made this connection already, and I've mentioned it in a previous video, but this is actually Calus's ship. You can tell because there is the recess in the front of it where a massive statue of Calus's face can be found. This ship is markedly different from all the other pyramid ships, and it's featured in a bunch of trailers for Lightfall. It is known as the Typhon Imperator, and it will set down in Neomuna during the plot of Lightfall at some point. In the meantime, I think you can expect to see it joining the Witnesses' forces in their eventual assault on the last city. Next, and probably most obviously, we can see the weapons inside the Warsats during this trailer, which look like upscaled sleeper simulants. This in itself isn't too surprising, as it's probably more accurate to say that the sleeper simulant is a scaled down version of this weapon. When Rasputin began to reform itself around the time of the Taken King and Warmind expansions, it engaged a protocol that had been running in the background for quite some time, a protocol known as Icolos. The Icolos protocol was intended to create weapons for the Warmind's agents, in this case, Guardians in the field. The sleeper simulant is merely the first and most obvious result of this effort. Other efforts include the Icolos weapons, including the shotgun, hand cannon, submachine gun, and sniper rifle. So given that Rasputin already had these weapon designs, it's not too much of a stretch to imagine that such weapons could have been miniaturized. Initially, this might have been done to aid Rasputin's Golden Age agents, known as the Seraphs. Now, however, these weapons are here as a repurposed tool for Guardian hands. And lastly, the only detail that I think you guys might have missed on top of all this is this little detail in the background moment from when Rasputin makes his ultimate sacrifice. Moments before his frame drops inert, you can see behind Anna Bray that there is the monitor with Rasputin's code matrix visible in the background. As the Aurora sacrifice protocol is activated, Rasputin dies, and the matrix that for so long was akin to his face or voice or personality, something that we've seen since the Warmind expansion, begins to disappear until it peters out. And then... yeah. It's a neat little detail to include alongside the exoframe going dark, as for a lot of us older Destiny players, this is what we associate as being Rasputin. Watching it fade out in the background is as much a part of watching Red's sacrifice as watching the frame die was. It's odd that some spaghetti lines on the screen should have such an impact, but it's almost strangely enough like watching a heartbeat stop, or watching a heart monitor flatline. So there you have it. Those are some things that you might have missed during the Season of the Seraph finale. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like, and of course know that your viewership as always is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Per audacia ad astra. I'll see you, Starside.